Hello YouTube, Alan here with part 2 of my question and answers videos series I guess. And last time I had a nice varied questions, and this time I think there's going to be another nice lot of good decent varied questions too. I probably got through less people last time than I had thought. As I expected, I kind of waffled in more than was probably necessary, but I kind of enjoyed answering the questions, and it might take a couple more parts than I was initially thinking, but I'm in no hurry to get through them, so let's just see how it goes. Now, first up then today we have Pete's Nestastic, and he has 3 questions. First one being, what are your thoughts on the unfounded negativity surrounding the Wii U? Initially, I was thinking, is it really unfounded? But why is there negativity? Even is there negativity? And I just said, yeah, there's definitely a lot of, it's just a stopgap console and all this type of talk, and why is that? I there's probably no definitive reason, but I guess from my perspective, one of the key factors would be the Wii itself. A certain degree of kind of letdown from the Wii. I know when it came out, there was a hell of a lot of hype, and I was very interested in it. And there on launch, they actually queued up to get the console on the midnight launching game. Never done that before. Haven't done that since. So yeah, it was a lot of hype, and it wasn't surprising there was a lot of hype. I mean, Nintendo had marketed it really well. They advertised it very well. They had shown how it stood apart from its kind of peers and from things like the Xbox and the PS3. They were just going for the pushing the graphics angle. You seen Wii Sports, and it turned out to be a massive success. But it was understandable why. It was a very immersive experience. When you did the motions, as you kind of had to do, you could just do this, but it worked to get into it, and it did improve the gameplay experience for that game if you felt involved. And not only that, you could then play with people who wouldn't ordinarily play games, so it became a very communal thing, and you're kind of like, yeah, this is a great change in gaming, and there's a lot of positivity to it. However, on the flip side then, they had a lot of marketing material where they would just show motions, the people swinging swords and doing all these different motions, and there was nothing on screen for the motion. It was more a suggestion. Hey, you can do this, and you could get this happen, and the control, it was capable of more than it actually was. I mean, you could say for example sword fighting. It wasn't really capable of one-to-one sword fighting like people thought it would be from the marketing material. Even when the Wii Motion Plus came out, there's still some failings in that one-to-one mapping thing. So there's an element of, in people's minds, they built it up. They bought into the hype that Nintendo were pushing, and that was great for the beginning, got people in. But then they started to get disappointed. It wasn't maybe living up to the experience that they were expecting. One good example was in the early materials they showed, it was either Red Steel or Metroid Prime 3, and they had a guy playing it. It was a first person shooter basically, and he was hiding behind the couch, and he was jumping out from the couch and all this sort of stuff. Now, of course, you absolutely do not need to do that. In fact, you won't be able to play the game right because your pointer will be blocked from the sensor bar. So it's ludicrous. But the trailer made it seem like, this experience is so immersive that you're hiding behind the couch like you're hiding behind a crate in the game, and you duck out from behind the couch, you duck out from behind the crate. That type of real world immersion. The Wii delivered nothing like that at all, and I think that sunk in. And when it did, when the novelty wore off, the fact that it was repackaged technology from 6 years ago kind of sunk in as well. So people are kind of feeling very bummed about the fact that you have this low fidelity system that has waggle games, And to be fair, even Nintendo were pretty poor about actually coming up with novel experiences to properly use it. I mean, Wii Sports, yes, great. But then you have things like flagship titles like Mario Galaxy. It made a decent use of the pointer and that was fun. But look at the motion, it was basically waggling. Okay, you could say the motion was sort of waggling, but it didn't really lend to an improvement in experience any more than just sitting back in the couch with a joypad lolling out. And even then, like they had the microphone in it, a fairly crap microphone at that, but it added pretty much nothing. So the kind of the Wii started to be deconstructed in terms of what it was offering. Its value proposition wasn't as good as expected. Online facilities, Wii Connect 24, these things just weren't that well supported. And I think when you take that mindset of, well, they didn't support the virtual console that well, WiiWare wasn't really populated with that, frequency of titles and a proper price point that made it a compelling proposition, memory issues, proprietary controllers out the wazoo and low tech, and you kind of think, well, is this all going to follow through to the Wii U? I mean, okay, it has a nice looking tablet controller, and it has graphics that are of today's standard, if not maybe a little better, who knows, it's hard to tell. Really calling something one thing is more powerful than another is kind of silly, because it's often about how you use architecture. Certain systems are capable in different ways. So it's clearly capable, but if Microsoft and Sony come out with new consoles in 2013 or 2014 probably, then are they going to be bounds ahead of the Wii U, and it's going to be the whole Wii versus PS3 type of thing again? And that's a possibility. So then you end up with the proposition that you have another system where Nintendo have promised a lot, deliver a little, and perhaps overpriced, judging by what people feel about what they got out of things like the Wii. And even the 3DS, the 3D experience, not really that compelling. Augmented reality, again, these things haven't maybe warranted what would have been initially a very high launch price. On top of that, there's always a smaller vocal subset of people that do like to kind of complain and be negative about things, particularly Nintendo. And I think they gain a lot of traction in the press, but that doesn't really impact how the overall market really reacts. I mean, after the Wii launch, the negativity set in fairly quick. You see a lot of places like IGN and GameSpot and Kotaku and things like that. There was a lot of negative bashing articles. But the Wii went through several years of blockbuster sales. It may have petered off in its end life, but what we're also remembering is that we are really at the end of what would have been a traditional console cycle as the Wii was designed. At 100 million nearly sold, it did really, really well. So, did all the negativity that set in really affect the system? Not really. So maybe there are people being negative about the Wii U. Is it founded? Perhaps not. In fact, definitely not. Yes, you can have reservations, but if you haven't played the games, if you haven't experienced the hardware, if you don't know anything about the pricing structure, how can you really have these preconceived notions? It's kind of silly. So yeah, I better move on because I've been ages answering my question. Good lordy lord. So number 2 then. Who's your favourite Girls Aloud member? Well, to be honest, I only know 2 of them, Cheryl and Nadine, and you haven't quantified on what grounds to say them as your favourite, because since I barely know any of them, I'm just going to pick Nadine out of nationality. What can I say? That's a shorter question. A very oddball one too, I guess. And then number 3. Once you've completed the SMS collection, which direction will you go next? Yeah. While I was doing the SMS collection, obviously that was a fairly focused set. Just trying to go for a full set. But when that's over, I won't be going for another full set, at least not anytime soon. I said it before in my Retro Collect series, only go for a full set if you are really passionate about the subject matter, about the system. You know, don't just kind of get into it and think, ah, yeah, it'd be great. You know, a lot of people are talking about such a system on YouTube. I'll start collecting that because kind of they're collecting it, and then I'll go for a full set because they're going for a full set. No, there's so many overpriced games. You got to deal with so much nonsense. It's just not worth it, and you know, you don't end up with a load of games that you're not interested in. So I think I'm going to go to a much more scattered, you know, approach when I finish that, where it'll be just picking up games for systems that I either have and want to explore more. Things like basically Nintendo stuff from the NES to the N64, particularly probably the SNES and the N64 actually, and more Mega Drive, definitely more Mega Drive. It's a superb system, and I really don't have a collection that does it justice at all. So many of the better titles, or the titles that, you know, I mean, a lot of my titles are things like Sonics and stuff, and they're great games, but I'd like to explore more. And then systems I got recently, like the Saturn, the PC Engine, definitely want to try those out a bit more. The Dreamcast perhaps, and maybe new things like Virtual Boy and Vectrix, and maybe even Neo Geo, you never know. If funds allow. Which they probably won't. So, yes, thank you, Pete, for those questions. Very interesting, and by God, I fairly answered that first one, I think. So, moving on to Jimmy Costello, and he asked 3 questions as well. And the first is, he says it's more of a request than a question, so sorry if you've already did this, but could you do a video tour of your SMS collection, highlighting some of your favourites, rare items, etc.? I know what you picked up cheap. I actually have no app, but I can't do it at the moment because my collection isn't in one place. It's, you know, spread in several places, so it's not really practical to do kind of a collection thing. I would love to, and I hope to sometime down the line. But yeah, it's been requested several times, but I just can't just yet. So for the future. Number 2, what do you do outside of collecting and playing games, i.e. other hobbies, interests in your job? Well, my job is I'm a software engineer, so yeah, fairly boring. But at one point that was more of an interest. You know, when I was in college and moving through college, and even at the end of it, I did do a bit of outside programming personally, just bits and bobs, and I was doing kind of even media type applications, media library tools, things like that. Way before they've kind of become more commonplace in the market. This would have been quite a few years back. But with work, with family life, with YouTube, with gaming, I tend not to have that much time for other things. I guess I would, you know, watch TV shows, watch movies, browse the web, maybe a little bit of reading, listen to some podcasts, things like that. But yeah, I barely have enough time for the other stuff, let alone extras. Touching on the kind of job and programming things, a little kind of interesting factoid, I guess, was that before I went into the industry, I was doing a research PhD, and it was actually in distributed gaming. So technically, you could say I'm a game doctor, and published too. So, thank you. Oh no, wait, one more. I've thanking you too early. Any recommendations or help on how to start making videos for someone who never has? Well, simple as this. Start making a video, turn on the camera and go. Simple as that. I mean, if you look back at my early ones, you can see I pretty much, you know, I mean, I was behind the camera then, but it was just point and shoot and talk. No script, no production, no editing, no converting, no nothing. And yes, I would love to do more of those things, and over time I hope to do more, but A, I don't have enough time to do them, and B, I just have a netbook, as you can see here, as my main computer, which is, and the little legs coming off it again, rather annoyingly. It's giving me jip tonight. So it's not really practical to do video processing on this thing, given that, you know, I'd say a calculator could probably out compute it. But yeah, just kind of go for it. Determine what you're into. I don't know if you want to make a gaming channel or just make videos in general, but pick something you've got an interest in, and you know, come up with a few ideas for videos. Maybe jot them down. You know, maybe ideas for series or continuations. What I try and do is have kind of varied content regularly enough, or semi-regularly if possible, kind of in somewhat relation manner. So you got things like I've done music videos, gameplay videos, a few playthroughs, package and pickups, the odd kind of response video and things like that. And just kind of varied content, but continually I do them, and they're all done fairly simply. I don't have any equipment. My camera is just a camera phone, much to my annoyance because it causes me no end of frustration at times, and can be poor quality at times too. But it's enough to kind of get by most of the time. I don't have a stand or anything because it's a camera. Because it's a phone. I just prop it up in boxes and chairs and magazines and all sorts of crap, and just turn it on and shoot. In fact, today for this series is giving no one any trouble because it either is failing to record or it's putting in jutter and stutter. It's probably done it just there now to annoy me. So yeah, you can fight through even if you don't have the best equipment and get something. It's just all about expressing yourself and contributing to the community. So give it a go. And then, that's the last question. Sorry, now reading this all funny. So thank you, Jimmy, for those questions. Moving on, then we have Sassy Cosimo. I think that's maybe pronounced right. All three go Flicky F, and she asked one question, which was, what was the first game you ever played? Now, I can't quite remember. I think it was either Binatone Pong or Asteroids on the 7800. Now, I did a video a while back called Remembering Binatone Pong, where I talked about my experience with that, and I can't remember, did my parents give me that Pong clone as a response to me playing my neighbour's Atari 7800, or just before that? But it was the first one that I really kind of played a fair bit off and kind of ingrained my love for gaming, if you will. It was the eye opener. The fact that I could play something on screen and manipulate something on the TV was like, wow. I loved it, and of course it gave me a great starting point into the industry because it's pretty much starting kind of at the beginning, or close, as close as matters, and you can see where gaming has been, where it's come, and kind of how things have changed. So there we go. I'll say Pong. And thanks for the question. Well, I do one more. I'll squeeze one more in, even though I ran kind of long on the first set. And we have 3 questions from Darren Walsock. And he asked, first of all, which system do you wish was in your collection that currently isn't? Well, I'm going to say 2, and I mentioned them earlier, and that's the Vectrix and the Virtual Boy. Both of those systems I've actually played in person at CGE 2010 and really enjoyed them. They're the type of thing that does not translate to emulation. You have to play the hardware, and they're completely unique. There's no other vector monitor home system outside of an arcade machine, and there's no virtual goggly type of thing that really offers the same experience as the Virtual Boy either. They have smallish libraries, to be fair, but that makes it achievable. You can get a few of them, you can get a good bit of the library, and you can actually have a bit of variety. There's multicast for the Vectrix too, which really aids there. And yeah, they're just something you have to experience in person. If you play, say like you're a fan of 2D fire games, and you have a Neo Geo, and you're playing all the great 2D fire games, well, you could get a Mega Drive and you could play more, you could get a SNES, you could play more, you could get a Saturn, you could play more, you could even get maybe a Dreamcast and play some more 2D fires. But they're, a variance of the same thing. Whereas, if you have any of those systems, say you got a Mega Drive, and then you decide to get a Virtual Boy, that is a different experience for sure. It's something that you have to have on its own in physical form to really experience. So they're my 2 systems. There's many more, don't get me wrong, but they're top 2 on the list. So number 2 then, what is your favourite alcoholic drink? Believe it or not, despite being Irish, I'm not actually the biggest drinker in the world. But if you held a gun to my head and said, what do you want to drink? I would say a Southern Comfort and Coke. And if you didn't have that, I would say a Jack Daniels and Coke. But I also quite like Baileys. So, yeah. For somebody who doesn't drink, that's a few actually. But, okay, yeah. Probably Southern Comfort and Coke. Now, number 3 then. Last question for tonight. When will you be putting those games away in the background? Like, there's only a few. What are you on about? Okay. To a certain degree, I'm going to say watch this space on that, because they will be going away in a shorter time frame, because they're sitting in a radiator behind me, and if I turn on the radiator, they will melt. That's not good, especially given the money that some of them cost. So yeah, they will have to go somewhere. And I will have to come up with some solution. I don't know what I'm going to do yet. That's actually quite a problem. I may have to start stacking them in front of me or something. I don't know. But in the short term, they will go away. In the long term, there might be something coming up. So I'll leave it there. Kind of cryptic, yes. Watch for a future video. And what better place to leave it? Thanks, Darren, for the questions. Again, nice varied bunch. Thanks to everyone for questions. And I'm sure I'll get through the rest. There's plenty more, actually. Yep, plenty more. So there's going to be a few more parts. I hope you don't mind taking this long. I kind of enjoy doing them, so I feel in no rush to kind of plow through them. Yeah, we leave it there because I've been, blathering on long enough now, surely. Thanks for watching as always, and we'll see you again soon. Bye for now.